The sound of running water froze him at the door. After a 12-hour shift and a long bus ride home, the single dad stood in the dim hallway of his small apartment, his jacket still soaked with sweat and dust, his heart suddenly pounding as steam slipped out from under the bathroom door. He had locked that door in the morning. His daughter was staying overnight at a neighbor's place. And yet, inside his bathroom, someone was showering. When he pushed the door open with shaking hands, what he saw would quietly change the course of his broken, tired life forever. Before the story pulls you deeper, take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel Soul Tale if you believe in kindness, second chances, and stories that remind us what it means to be human. Your support keeps these stories alive. He was a man worn down by responsibility. At 39, his back hurt more than his pride allowed him to admit, and his eyes carried the permanent shadow of someone who never slept enough. Ever since his wife passed away 3 years earlier, life had become a narrow tunnel of work, parenting, and survival. Every morning he woke before sunrise, prepared his daughter's lunch, braided her hair the best he could, and walked her to school before heading to a warehouse job that barely covered rent. Every night he returned to the same small apartment, where silence pressed against him harder than any physical weight. That evening, fear and confusion mixed as he stood near the bathroom door. The steam cleared slowly, revealing a woman standing under the water, her hair dark and heavy against her shoulders, her posture tense as if she herself did not feel safe. She was not young, not careless, and not dressed in luxury when she hurriedly wrapped herself in a towel. Her eyes met his with the same shock mirrored back. The moment felt unreal, like a scene from a movie that had wandered into his exhausted life. Instead of anger, something unexpected happened inside him. He noticed bruises faintly visible on her arms, the kind that spoke of running, not accidents. He noticed the way her hands trembled as she turned off the water, as if she had not felt warmth in days. And he noticed the small backpack sitting on the bathroom floor, worn and heavy with whatever life she had managed to carry with her. The truth came out slowly, not in dramatic words but in heavy pauses and quiet explanations. She had collapsed near his building earlier that afternoon, dizzy from exhaustion and dehydration. His elderly neighbor, who knew him as the kind single father who fixed broken lights and carried groceries upstairs, had brought her inside, thinking the apartment was empty. She had only meant to clean herself before leaving. Life, however, had other plans. He gave her dry clothes that once belonged to his late wife, clothes he had never been able to throw away. The act alone reopened wounds he kept sealed with routine and silence. As she sat at the small kitchen table, holding a cup of warm tea, he felt something unfamiliar return to his chest. Not hope exactly, but movement, like a heart remembering how to beat properly. Her story unfolded over the evening like a slow, painful storm. She had escaped an abusive situation, leaving behind everything she owned to protect herself. Shelters were full. Friends had turned distant. Strength had carried her until her body finally gave in. Listening to her, the single dad realized how close he himself lived to the edge. One missed paycheck, one bad week, and his daughter's life could unravel just as easily. Days turned into a strange, quiet routine. She slept on the couch at first, then helped with small things around the apartment. She cooked meals with care, cleaned without being asked, and walked his daughter to school when his shift started early. The apartment, once heavy with grief, slowly filled with movement again. Laughter returned in soft, cautious pieces. The little girl, who had grown used to her father's tired smiles, began to smile wider. But life never changes without resistance. Rumors spread. A landlord asked questions. Pride tried to convince him that he was doing too much, risking too much. He struggled with guilt, wondering if allowing this stranger into their lives meant betraying the memory of his wife. Nights became sleepless again, but this time his thoughts were different. They were filled with responsibility mixed with something dangerously close to hope. The turning point came when the woman received a call that shook her completely. The past had found her. She could not stay. Packing her bag that evening, she thanked him with eyes full of unshed tears, insisting she could not bring trouble into his home. Watching her stand by the door, he felt the same hollow ache he had felt the day he buried his wife. Loss, he realized, does not always arrive as death. Sometimes it arrives as someone choosing to leave to protect you. If this story is touching something inside you, please pause for a moment near the end and comment one word that describes how it makes you feel. Your words matter more than you know. She left quietly before dawn, leaving behind folded clothes and a handwritten note filled with gratitude, courage, and promises to survive. Weeks passed. The apartment returned to silence, but it was no longer empty. Something had shifted. The single dad stood taller at work. He spoke more. He smiled without forcing it. He had learned that kindness did not weaken him. It reminded him who he was. Months later, on a rainy afternoon, fate returned the favor. At a community center where he volunteered with his daughter, he saw her again, healthier, stronger, standing behind a